What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning back in to another fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying a hot tag hare's ear. It's kind of just a waltz worm, a pimped out waltz worm, if you may. This fly right here caught me a lot of fish last year when the water is dirtier. It's kind of like an attractor pattern, so with the bright little tag on the back, the fish seem really interested in it, and it fishes really well in dirty water as well as clear water. But I usually bust it out when the water has a little tint to it, and my naturals aren't really fishing as well as they should be. So the hook we have in the vise right now is a size 14 Fly Fiend wide gap jig hook. This is our new jig hook. If you are interested in trying out some of our hooks, you can check that out at theflyfiend.com. I'll also leave a link in the description. The bead we have on here is a slotted tungsten Fly Fiend 3mm gold bead. And the thread we're going to be using is just some Veevus. This is a C14 and this is a 12/0. So I'm going to start my thread right behind this bead. Build up a little bit of a dam there just so it doesn't go anywhere. I'm going to take my thread back to about where the hook barb would be on a regular hook. I'm going to cut out my tag end there. And the first material we're tying in is actually our tail material, and that's just going to be some Antron yarn, and this is in fluorescent pink. You can tie this in all kinds of different colors. You can tie it in chartreuse, orange, red, even white. I've tied a couple in white and they fish pretty well too. So I'm just going to get one strand right off this roll. I'm not going to double it up or anything like that. It's just going to go straight in how it is. I'm just going to use a pinch wrap, put that right on top, and I'm just going to lift up kind of on the back of it so it just stays right on top. You want this to sit right on top of that hook shank, just like so. Then I'm going to bring that back up. Then I can cut out this little tag end. I like to leave this a little bit longer so I can get my finger in there just to cut it out. And you should get a nice clean cut there. Now I'm just going to pull this back, cut it to a rough length for now. Now we're going to be tying in our rib, and for this fly we're going to be using two ribs. One is going to be just a 6X Tippet material. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. This is just some Tippet material that I got out of a clearance bin, and I use it for my ribs on flies. I'm just going to tie this on one side here. Trying to keep that right on the side. Just like so. Bring that thread back up. Now the other rib is going to be just some Flashaboo. This is actually lateral scale in the small size because I ran out of Flashaboo, but this works just as well. You can use any sort of tinsel or anything that you're comfortable with for a flash rib. Just use that. So I'm going to tie this rib on this side of the hook shank. It's like so. So you got your rib here and your other one on that side. I'm kind of just smoothing out this body a bit. Now for the body, we're just going to be using some Hares Ear. This is just a custom blended Hares Ear that I made off a mask. I threw a little bit of CDC in this just to add a little bit more lifelike to it. But you're going to want to dub this very tight and slim. I find a lot of people will make these really bulky, and they just hold a lot of water and don't really nymph that well. So I like my nymphs to be nice and slender, especially when I'm using dubbing, because I just want it to cut through the water easier, look a little bit more natural. So I'm just going to dub a nice little thin body here. Kind of slowly taper it. Let's grab a little bit more of this dubbing here. Like so. Now the first thing we're going to tie in is our rib, or our flashaboo. And I like to counter rib this flashaboo. So about 3 or 4 wraps is all you need. Just nicely spaced apart. It's kind of tricky to tie that one off. As you can see, it got some nice segmentation going on there as well. Now I'm going to grab my 6X Tippet, and I'm just going to make regular turns up that body, and that's going to lock in that flashaboo so it doesn't rip out. It's just going to add more strength to the overall fly, since I'm not putting any UV curing resin on this. I like to try to make my flies as durable as possible. So at this point, we're just going to tie in a little bit of CDC. You can use whatever color you like. This right here is just a brown color, and I think it matches pretty nice with the hare's ear. You can use natural color. It's totally personal preference. And the best way I find to tie this in is you're going to get your feather out of the bag. You're going to strip all the fibers off one side. I usually strip them off the left side because I tie it in that way. Just like so. So I have all those stripped off the one side. And I'm just going to pull that tip back and cut this into a little triangle so I can tie that in, just like so. And I can tie that, use that as a little anchor and tie that in. Now I'm just going to grab my hackle pliers. And with the CDC, you don't need much. I see a lot of people putting in a whole feather on both sides, and you don't need much with this. Less is more, per se. And I usually tie in about two wraps is pretty normal. Like so. The main reason you don't want to over bulk this is because it holds water, and the more you put in, the more water is going to hold, and it's not going to really have that movement to it that you want. You want it just to have a little bit, just so it holds some air pockets and gives off some nice little bubbles when it's going through the water. So I'm just going to pull all that back, just make some nice wraps over that stem. Make sure it's all nice and tight in there. Now I'm just going to grab a little bit more of this dubbing just to put in front of this. And this is going to be a really thin noodle here. Just to kind of cover up and help those fibers lay rearward. Just like so. Now you can just throw some whip finishes in there to build up a little collar. I like this pink thread. It's not too crazy, just subtle. Nice little pink subtle thread. You can use fluorescent if you want. I just think this looks real nice with the tail. So as far as this tail goes, I'm just going to literally put my scissors, I'm going to rest my back of my scissors on the back of the hook bend, and that's how long I like to cut my tail, just like that. So it's just a little tag. It's I see a lot of people leave them really long. That's okay. It's all personal preference, really. I think the smaller tags are they look a little bit more proportioned to the fly. Then all I'm going to do is just use my nail there and kind to rip this CDC so it's about to the end of the fly, about the end of the tail. You don't want to cut this either. You want to try to make it as natural as possible. You don't want it to have a straight cut. You want it to kind of taper to the back. So there it is once it's all done. It's one of my go-to flies. Like I said, I also tie it in chartreuse. I have a couple white ones in my box, as well as orange, red. You can change up all kinds of things on it. This is kind of my just go-to to throw on when the water's a little bit dirtier and I need something to kind of get in front of those fish's faces and make them eat. So I hope you liked today's video, guys. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions about the fly or anything like that, just drop that down in the comment section below. If you want to see all the materials I used on this fly, you can check that in the description. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Thanks a lot again for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.